Just what those desperate poor starving people from North Korea needed. It's now being reported by several news agencies that multiple North Korean defectors who lived near and around the North's main nuclear test site have shown symptoms of possible radiation exposure, although doctors have said it is hard to determine whether they were affected by nuclear tests or if the radiation is coming from a leak or somewhere else. Seoul's Unification Ministry announced the results of the 54-day medical checkup, quarantine and tests for radiation exposure on over 30 former residents of Gyeongju County in the province of Hamgyong-bukdo. This is the same area which is home to the Punggye-ri nuclear test site and where all 6 of North Korea's nuclear tests were conducted, so the findings sadly don't come as much of a surprise. All defectors who were screened had left the county after the North's first nuclear test in 2006 and arrived in the south before the 4th test in January of 2016. Tragically, nearly 24 recent defectors told South Korean media in November that Gyeongju County was turning into a wasteland where babies were reportedly being born with birth defects. But we all know very well Kim Jong-un doesn't care one bit. North Korea's other weapons, expert warns nukes aren't biggest concern. Fears North Korea is developing a biological weapons program. North Korea's nuclear program has long triggered condemnation, including the UN Security Council's recent decision to apply some of the toughest sanctions in history, but is something far more lethal lurking in the Hermit Kingdom's arsenal? They have a large stockpile of chemical weapons, but the one that gets the least attention, and that I worry most about, is their biological weapons program, said Andrew Weber, the former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Defense for Nuclear, Chemical and Biological Defense Programs from 2009 to 2014. When it comes to biological weapons, Weber said, just a tiny amount can bring incredibly lethal results. Ounces or pounds would be enough. You can have millions of lethal doses of anthrax in a several-pound quantity. With smallpox, maybe just a few grams. One of the biggest concerns when it comes to chemical or biological warfare, a concern that Weber and the White House seem to share, is the fact that these incredibly lethal attacks can easily be cloaked in deniability, and difficult to trace back to the perpetrator. Weber pointed out that it takes just 1 or 2 people to covertly deliver a strategic biological weapons attack. North Korea has been accused of using chemical weapons in an apparent assassination earlier this year, one that unfolded beyond its borders. Kim Jong-nam, the half-brother of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, was killed with the use of the nerve agent VX in the Kuala Lumpur International Airport last February 13. Adding to the difficulty in tracking the use of weapons like these, Weber said, is the fact that it's usually too late when people realize they've been exposed. Weber added that to release anthrax into the atmosphere, you'd likely go undetected and it would be a week or so before people start displaying symptoms. During the 2001 anthrax attacks in the U.S., Weber noted that people were mailed envelopes filled with the deadly substance, along with a letter telling them that they had been infected, and should seek medical attention. Weber said those warning letters are what allowed the government to quickly distribute antibiotics to thousands of Americans, likely saving lives in the process. Without them, the outcome could have been very different. If you don't know about an attack until people start showing up sick, it's very difficult to treat the inhalation of anthrax, Weber said. He added, if they can launch a VX attack in Kuala Lumpur, they can launch an anthrax attack in Los Angeles. The White House seemed to confirm the North's chemical and biological capabilities, writing in its newly released national security strategy that North Korea, a country that starves its own people, has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons that could threaten our homeland. For his part, Kim Jong-un said the United Nations committed an act of war with its new round of nuclear-related sanctions. North Korea's most recent test launch of a long-range missile, one that they claimed could reach anywhere on the U.S. mainland, inspired the UN Security Council's unanimous approval of what are considered some of the toughest sanctions in history. On December 22, President Trump suggested on Twitter that the vote indicates the world wants peace, not death. The text of the new UN resolution suggests that the proliferation of nuclear, chemical and biological weapons, as well as their means of delivery, constitutes a threat to international peace and security. In a statement, the North Korean government said it would categorically reject the resolution, which it described as a grave infringement upon the sovereignty of our republic, and an act of war violating peace and stability in the Korean peninsula and the region. A spokesperson for the Foreign Ministry of China, one of the rogue regime's few allies, seemed to call for restraint from both the international community and North Korea. In a statement, China called on nations to make positive and constructive efforts to de-escalate tensions on the Korean peninsula, while adding that the resolution was designed with the intention of not inflicting adverse humanitarian impact on North Koreans. How long will the West allow this to continue? There is no need to jump into every war out there, but this maniac dictator from North Korea is a deadly threat to civilization. Just look at what he does to his people. He needs to be taken out as soon as humanly possible. If we don't, the world will regret it. While the UN is actively seeking sanctions on Israel and reprimanding the US for the fact that President Donald Trump decided to move our embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, Kim Jong-un is starving and poisoning his people. Just think what he would do to us if he gets the chance. Please share if you agree we need to take out Kim Jong-un ASAP.